The first thing Natalie noticed when she woke up was the ring. A diamond ring. On her left hand? On that finger. The second thing she noticed was the pounding headache that felt like a marching band had taken up residence in her skull. The third thing she noticed was the warm body next to her in bed. A male body. A very familiar, infuriating, absolutely should not be in her bed male body. No, Natalie whispered, sitting up too quickly and immediately regretting it as the room spun. No, 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 no. The body stirred. Dark hair, broad shoulders, and then those annoyingly perfect green eyes blinked open. Natalie? His voice was rough with sleep and possibly alcohol. What are you doing in my... He looked around the hotel room, clearly confused. Where are we? Vegas, Natalie said flatly. We're in Vegas, Carter. Holland sat up, the sheet falling to his waist, and Natalie deliberately looked away. This was not the time to notice that her rival had apparently been working out. Why are we in Vegas? Carter asked, then noticed his own left hand, and the matching gold band on his ring finger. Why am I wearing a two-way wedding ring? Natalie finished. Because apparently, we got married last night. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Carter started laughing. Hysterical, disbelieving laughter that made Natalie want to throw a pillow at his stupidly handsome face. This isn't funny, she snapped. It's a little funny, Carter managed between laughs. You and me? Married? We hate each other. I'm aware. Natalie scrambled out of bed, relieved to find she was still wearing last night's dress. At least they hadn't. No, she wasn't going to think about that. We need to fix this. Now. Carter's laughter died down as the reality of the situation sank in. How did this even happen? Natalie pressed her fingers to her temples, trying to remember. The conference. The marketing awards. She'd won Best Campaign of the Year, beating out Carter's agency for the third year in a row. Carter had won Best Creative Director. They'd both been at the after-party. The shots. Natalie groaned. Someone suggested shots to celebrate. And you suggested we settle our rivalry once and for all, Carter added, memory clearly returning. You said we should compete at everything. Drinking, dancing, poker, and someone said we should make a bet. What was the bet? Carter asked, though his expression suggested he was afraid of the answer. Natalie spotted a piece of paper on the nightstand. She grabbed it, her heart sinking as she read the barely legible handwriting. Whoever chickens out of the next challenge has to admit the other person is the better marketer and buy them dinner, she read aloud. The next challenge was, she turned the paper over and felt her stomach drop. Getting married at the first chapel we could find. And neither of us chickened out, Carter finished quietly. Because we're both too competitive and too drunk to have common sense, Natalie said. This is a disaster. I have the Pemberton pitch on Monday. If they find out I drunkenly married my competitor. Wait. You're pitching Pemberton? Carter's eyes widened. So am I. Of course he was. Pemberton Industries was the biggest account either of their agencies had ever pursued. Landing them would be career-defining. And being married to the competition would be career-ending. We need to get this annulled, Natalie said. Immediately. Before anyone finds out. Agreed, Carter said, already reaching for his phone. I'll find a lawyer. You find our clothes. I'm wearing my clothes. I meant mine. Carter gestured at himself, and Natalie realized he was only wearing boxer briefs. She threw a pillow at him after all. The lawyer's office was small, cramped, and smelled like old coffee and broken dreams. So let me get this straight. The lawyer, a tired-looking woman named Patricia, said, looking between them. You two got married last night while intoxicated, and you want an annulment. Yes, Natalie and Carter said in unison. Patricia sighed. Unfortunately, it's not that simple in Nevada. Intoxication alone isn't grounds for annulment unless you can prove you were so impaired you didn't understand what you were doing. We didn't understand what we were doing. Natalie protested. Did you sign the marriage certificate? Natalie and Carter exchanged glances. The memories were hazy, but, yes, Carter admitted. Did you both say I do when asked? Another pause. Natalie had a vague memory of standing in a chapel decorated with entirely too many plastic flowers. Carter beside her, both of them laughing. Yes, Natalie whispered. Then you understood enough to consent. That makes annulment difficult. Patricia pulled out some paperwork. Your options are, prove fraud, prove one of you was already married, prove you're related. We're not related, both of them said quickly. Or wait out a divorce. Which in Nevada, with the right paperwork, can be done in about 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Carter ran his hands through his hair. The Pemberton pitch is in 3 days. Patricia shrugged. Unless you can prove legitimate grounds for annulment, 2 weeks is the fastest I can do. You'll need to file, wait for processing, and… What if we just stay married? Natalie heard herself say. Everyone stared at her. What? Carter said. Natalie's mind was racing. It was insane. Absolutely insane. But, think about it, she said, turning to Carter. We file for divorce today. It takes 2 weeks minimum. During that time, we're still married. If Pemberton finds out, and they will, because paperwork is public record, they'll see we're in the middle of a divorce. That looks messy, unprofessional, and like we have terrible judgment. We do have terrible judgment, Carter pointed out. We got married in Vegas. But if we're just married, Natalie continued, warming to the idea, it's a romantic story. 2 rival marketers fell in love. It's cute, quirky. It shows we can collaborate despite competition. Carter stared at her like she'd grown a second head. You want to stay married? To me, your rival. Temporarily, Natalie said. Just until after the pitch. Whichever one of us wins Pemberton, and it will be me, we can quietly divorce after. No mess, no scandal, just a brief marriage that didn't work out. Patricia looked between them with barely concealed amusement. So you want to stay legally married but live separately and continue competing against each other? Exactly, Natalie said. That's insane, Carter said. Do you have a better idea? Carter was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. Fine. But we need rules, but rules? If we're doing this, and I can't believe we're doing this, we need boundaries. This is a business arrangement, nothing more. Natalie nodded. Agreed. Rule 1, no one can know this was an accident. Rule 2, we maintain separate residences, Carter added. Rule 3, this ends the day after the Pemberton decision. Rule 4, no letting this affect the pitch. May the best agency win. It will be mine, Natalie said confidently. Keep dreaming, Mrs. Holland, Carter shot back. Natalie's stomach did a weird flip at the name. She ignored it. So we're doing this? She asked. Carter extended his hand. Business partners, temporarily. Natalie shook it, trying to ignore the warmth of his palm against hers, temporarily. Patricia printed out some paperwork. Well, this is the most interesting case I've had all year. Congratulations on your marriage, you 2 crazy kids. As they left the office, Natalie's phone buzzed. A text from her assistant. Pemberton just called. They want to meet you and your spouse for dinner tomorrow night. They like to know the whole person, apparently. Should I tell them you're single? Natalie showed Carter the message. I just got the same text, he said, face pale. Of course you did, Natalie muttered. Because the universe has a sick sense of humor. So what do we do? Natalie looked at the ring on her finger, then at Carter's matching band. We have dinner with Pemberton, she said. Together, as a married couple. This is the worst idea you've ever had, Carter said. Probably, Natalie agreed. But we're committed now. For better or worse, Carter said with a rueful smile. That's the vow we apparently made, Natalie said. Might as well make it convincing. Natalie stood in front of her closet, trying to decide what a successful marketing executive who was definitely in love with her rival-turned-husband would wear to dinner with a potential client. Her phone rang. Carter. We need to get our story straight, he said without preamble. Agreed. Come over. To your place? We're married, Carter. It'll look weird if you don't know where I live. 30 minutes later, Carter was sitting in her living room, looking around at her carefully curated space with obvious interest. Nice place, he said. Very. You. Is that a compliment or an insult? Surprisingly, a compliment. He sat on her couch. Okay, story time. How did we fall in love? Natalie sat across from him with a notepad. We need this to be believable. We're known rivals in the industry. So we lean into that, Carter suggested. Rivals to lovers. It's a classic. Fine. We've been competing for years, always at the same events, same pitches. The rivalry was actually unresolved tension. Romantic tension, Carter added with a smirk. Don't make this weird. You're the one who suggested we pretend to be in love. Natalie threw a couch pillow at him. He caught it easily. When did we start dating? She asked. 3 months ago, after the Morrison campaign launch. We both attended, had too much wine, and actually talked for the first time instead of just competing. Natalie wrote it down. That's actually believable. What did we talk about? Carter thought for a moment. The truth. We talked about why we do this job. What drives us. Natalie looked up, surprised. We did? Yeah. You said you loved the challenge of changing minds, of making people care about things they didn't know they cared about. Carter's expression was oddly soft. I remembered thinking it was the first real thing you'd ever said to me. Oh. Natalie's chest felt tight. What did you say? That I got into marketing because I love storytelling. Finding the narrative that makes something matter. They sat in silence for a moment. So after Morrison, we started talking more, Natalie continued, breaking the moment. Then dating. Then Vegas happened and we decided why wait. Impulsive but romantic, Carter said. Works with our competitive personalities. Pemberton will buy it? If we sell it right. Carter stood up. Which means we need to practice. Practice what? Being married. He extended his hand. Come here. Natalie stood reluctantly. What are you doing? We need to be comfortable with each other. Right now you look at me like I'm a hostile takeover. Carter pulled her closer. We're supposed to be in love. That means casual affection. His hand rested on her waist, and Natalie tried to ignore the flutter in her stomach. This is weird, she said. Extremely weird, Carter agreed. But necessary. Try looking at me like you don't want to strangle me. That's asking a lot. Carter laughed, and Natalie realized she liked the sound. When had that happened? Okay. New strategy, he said. Tell me something true. Something that has nothing to do with work. Why? Because we're supposed to know each other. Really know each other. Natalie considered. I hate mornings. Like, genuinely hate them. I set 3 alarms and still hit snooze. Carter smiled. I'm the opposite. I wake up at 5 a.m. naturally and go for a run. That's horrifying. Your turn. I can't cook to save my life, Natalie admitted. I survive on takeout and protein bars. I love cooking, Carter said. It's how I decompress after a long day. Of course you do. You're probably perfect at it. I make a mean carbonara, he said with a grin. I'll make it for you sometime. We're getting divorced after Pemberton, remember? Right. Forgot. But Carter didn't move away. Natalie realized they were still standing close, his hand still on her waist, and it didn't feel as weird anymore. One more thing, Carter said quietly. When we're at dinner tomorrow, I'm going to put my hand on yours. Maybe touch your back. Normal couple stuff. Okay. And you should probably call me something other than Carter. Like what? I don't know. What do people in love call each other? Honey? Babe? Natalie tested the words and immediately cringed. This is impossible. Just use my name, Carter said. But say it like you mean it. Natalie looked up at him. Really looked. Not at her rival or her accidental husband, but at Carter Holland. The way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. The slight scar on his left eyebrow. The way he was looking at her with something that wasn't quite competitive anymore. Carter, she said softly. His expression shifted. Yeah. Like that. They stood there for a moment too long, and then Natalie stepped back. I think we're ready for tomorrow, she said. Her voice slightly unsteady. Yeah, Carter said. I think we are. After he left, Natalie sat on her couch and stared at the ring on her finger. This was supposed to be simple. A business arrangement. A temporary solution to a Vegas mistake. So why did her heart race when he said her name? The restaurant was elegant, expensive, and exactly the kind of place where major business deals happened over wine and perfectly plated tiny portions. James Pemberton and his wife Margaret were already seated when Natalie and Carter arrived. Ah, the Hollands. James stood to shake their hands. Thank you for joining us. Natalie felt Carter's hand settle on the small of her back as they sat down. The touch was warm, reassuring, and felt surprisingly natural. Thank you for the invitation, Natalie said smoothly. We've been looking forward to meeting you both. When I heard you two were married, I have to admit, I was surprised, Margaret said with a warm smile. You're known as fierce competitors. We still are, Carter said easily. Just now we compete over who does the dishes. Everyone laughed, and Natalie relaxed slightly. How did you two end up together? James asked. Given your professional rivalry. It was actually because of the rivalry, Natalie said, the practice story flowing naturally. We were at the Morrison campaign launch, and for the first time, instead of just competing, we actually talked. About marketing? Margaret asked. About why we love it, Carter said, his hand finding Natalie's on the table. Turns out we had more in common than we thought. And the rest is history, Natalie added. trying to ignore how right Carter's hand felt holding hers. Vegas history, Carter said with a grin. We eloped last week. How romantic. Margaret clasped her hands together, spontaneous and passionate. I love it. James, however, looked more analytical. And you're both pitching for our account on Monday. We are, Natalie confirmed. Separately. That doesn't create conflict? We keep business and personal completely separate, Carter said. My agency's pitch stands on its own merit, as does Natalie's. And whichever one of us you choose, Natalie added, the other will respect that decision. Our marriage doesn't change the fact that we're both professionals. Actually, Carter said, squeezing her hand, it makes us better. We push each other to be stronger, sharper, more creative. Natalie looked at him, surprised. He was looking back at her with an expression that seemed almost genuine. That's what I wanted to hear, James said, sitting back with satisfaction. Too many people let personal relationships compromise their professional judgment. You two seem to have found a balance. The dinner continued, and Natalie found herself relaxing. Carter was charming, funny, and played the role of attentive husband perfectly. Every casual touch, every shared glance, every inside joke they improvised felt more real than it should. So tell me, Margaret said over dessert, what's the secret? How do you make a relationship work when you're also competitors? Natalie opened her mouth, ready with a practiced answer, but Carter spoke first. Respect, he said simply, looking at Natalie. I've always respected Natalie's work, even when we were rivals. She's brilliant, creative, and she never backs down from a challenge. Now I just get to appreciate those qualities from a different perspective. Something in Natalie's chest tightened. The way he was looking at her, it didn't feel like acting anymore. And Carter pushes me to be better, Natalie heard herself say. He sees possibilities I miss. His creativity is inspiring. She meant it. When had she started meaning it? You two are adorable, Margaret said. James, we should have them over for dinner after the pitch is settled. Win or lose? James asked with a knowing smile. Win or lose, Natalie confirmed, though her mind was spinning. After dinner, Carter walked her to her car. That went well, he said. You were good, Natalie admitted. Very convincing. So were you. Carter paused. Natalie, what you said in there? It was for show, Natalie said quickly. Too quickly, right. Of course. Carter's expression was unreadable. The pitch is Monday. After that, we go back to normal, Natalie finished. This ends. Yeah. Carter stepped back. Good night, Natalie. Good night. She watched him walk away and felt an unexpected ache in her chest. This was supposed to be fake. A performance. A business arrangement. So why did ending it suddenly feel like losing something real? Monday morning arrived with the weight of everything Natalie had been working toward. The Pemberton pitch was at 10 a.m. Carter's was at 2 p.m. Natalie arrived at her office at 6 a.m. to run through the presentation one final time. Her team had outdone themselves. The campaign was innovative, data-driven, and perfectly tailored to Pemberton's brand values. She should have been focused, confident, ready. Instead, she kept thinking about Carter, the way he'd looked at her during dinner, the warmth of his hand on hers, the things he'd said that felt too real to be acting. Her phone buzzed. Carter, good luck today. You're going to crush it. Natalie stared at the message. Carter never wished her luck. They were competitors, rivals, except they weren't. Not really. Not anymore. Natalie, thanks. You too. May the best agency win. Carter, it'll be you. Natalie's heart skipped. She typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on. Natalie, why would you say that? Carter, because I've seen your work. You're the best in the business. I've always known that. Natalie, you're the one who's won half the awards I've competed for. Carter, only because you pushed me to be better. Everything good I've done has been because I was trying to beat you. Natalie sat back, her presentation forgotten. Natalie, Carter, I have to tell you something. After your pitch, can we meet? Natalie, okay. The pitch went perfectly. James and Margaret asked smart questions, and Natalie had smart answers. Her team presented with confidence. The campaign strategy was flawless. She should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt hollow. She left the Pemberton building and found Carter waiting outside. How'd it go? He asked. Good. Really good. Natalie looked at him. You're going to miss your pitch. I know. Carter took a breath. I withdrew this morning? What? I called James and told him I was withdrawing my agency from consideration. Natalie's mind reeled. Why would you do that? Pemberton is the biggest account either of us has ever pursued. Because somewhere between Vegas and now, this stopped being about the pitch. Carter stepped closer. It stopped being fake. Carter, let me finish. Please. He took her hand. I've spent 3 years competing with you, fighting for every client, every award, every scrap of recognition, and I told myself it was professional rivalry, healthy competition. It was, Natalie whispered. It was also me being too scared to admit that I was already in love with you. Natalie's breath caught. That night in Vegas, when we were drunk and making stupid bets, you know what I was thinking? I was thinking that marrying you, even as a jokey, felt right. Felt like something I'd been waiting to do for years. You were drunk, Natalie said weakly. I was. But I wasn't wrong. Carter squeezed her hand. This week, pretending to be married to you, getting to know you outside of work, seeing you as more than my rival, it was the best week I've had in years. And I don't want it to end. The plan was to divorce after Pemberton, Natalie said. But her voice shook. Screw the plan. Carter cupped her face. I love you, Natalie. I've loved you since the first pitch we competed for when you completely destroyed my campaign with better research. I've loved you through every award ceremony where you won and I wanted to be mad but was just impressed. I've loved you while hating that I loved you because it was easier than admitting it. Tears pricked Natalie's eyes. You're my rival. I'm your husband, Carter said. Accidentally, drunkenly, ridiculously, but legally and completely yours. And I don't want that to change. What about the competition? The rivalry? We'll still compete. I'll still try to beat you at every pitch because that's who we are. Carter smiled. But now I get to come home to you after and celebrate when you win. You think I'm going to win more than you? I think we're going to push each other to be better than we ever were apart. Carter's thumb brushed her cheek. So what do you say, Mrs. Holland? Want to stay married to your rival? Natalie thought about the last week. The laughter, the conversations, the way Carter looked at her like she was the most impressive thing he'd ever encountered. The way her heart raced when he said her name. The way this accidental marriage had become the most real thing in her carefully planned life. On one condition, she said. Anything. You have to re-enter the Pemberton pitch. Carter blinked. What? We compete fairly. Both of us pitch. May the best agency win. Natalie grinned. Because I didn't fall in love with someone who gives up. I fell in love with someone who pushes me to be better. You fell in love with me? Carter's smile was blindingly bright. Accidentally, Natalie said. In Vegas. While drunk. But yes, that's the most romantic thing you've ever said to me. Don't get used to it. Carter laughed and kissed her. Natalie kissed him back, and it felt like winning and losing at the same time, like competition and collaboration, like chaos and coming home. When they pulled apart, Carter said, I'm still going to try to beat you at Pemberton. You better, Natalie said. I didn't marry someone who holds back. Accidentally marry, Carter corrected. Best accident I ever made, Natalie said. Same, Carter said, and kissed her again. The industry newsletter read, Pemberton Industries announces dual agency partnership. In an unprecedented move, Pemberton Industries has retained both Holland Creative and Morrison Marketing Group for their national campaign, citing the collaborative competition between the two agencies as a driving factor in their decision. Why choose when we can have both? Said James Pemberton, CEO. The rivalry between Natalie Morrison and Carter Holland pushes them both to excellence. We're excited to see what they can do together. The two agency heads, who married in a private ceremony earlier this year, have announced they'll be maintaining separate agencies while collaborating on select projects. We're better together, said Morrison. Even when we're competing. Especially when we're competing, Holland added. Natalie set down the newsletter and looked at Carter across their now shared apartment. Private ceremony? She said. We got married in a Vegas chapel decorated with plastic flowers. They don't need to know that, Carter said, pulling her onto the couch beside him. We're still keeping the agencies separate, Natalie confirmed. Obviously. I need someone to compete with, and I need someone to beat. Carter kissed her. You're insufferable. You love it, Natalie said. I love you, Carter corrected. The insufferable part is just a bonus. Natalie curled into him, looking at the ring on her finger. The same accidental ring from a Vegas chapel, now meaning something entirely different. Best terrible decision I ever made, she said. Accidentally marrying your rival? No, Natalie said, smiling up at him. Staying married to him. Same, Carter said. Though for the record, I'm totally going to beat you on the next Pemberton presentation. In your dreams, Holland. Every night. Morrison, Holland. Natalie paused. I didn't hyphenate. You should. Sounds powerful. It sounds like a law firm. It sounds like us, Carter said. Competitive, complicated, combined. Natalie thought about it. Fine. But only because Morrison Holland sounds like we could take over the world. We will, Carter said confidently. Right after we figure out whose turn it is to do the dishes. Not it. That's not fair. You can't call it when I'm... Carter's protest was cut off by Natalie kissing him, and he decided the dishes could wait. After all, they had the rest of their accidentally perfect lives to compete over them.